Hey there. Let's quickly talk about what to expect when, or what to plan to do when writing your lab report. So here is the lab report format that I handed out in class. So when you're making your title, you know to not just put yeast lab. It needs to describe more about what it is that you did with the lab. So if you're talking about the effects of varying amounts of sugar in on the chemical reaction with yeast, I would include all of that in your title. You do not need to have the word title here. I would center the title right in the center here. Remember that this is not MLA format. There should be no MLA heading, and it should be single spaced, not double spaced. Your introduction, this should be a couple of paragraphs. In this, you're going to basically give me the information that I need in order to break down and understand your discussion. So tell me about yeast. Tell me about the metabolism of yeast. Tell me the ideal temperatures or the ideal amounts of sugar for the chemical reaction. Tell me all of the information that's going to help me understand your discussion or your conclusions. So tell me why it's being conducted, meaning we're doing this to determine the most effective amount of sugar, uh, and tell me what you already know, so all of your research, and what do you think is going to happen. I would also include your hypothesis at the end of the introduction. It can be part of the paragraph or it can be just below it, either whatever works for you. So you're going to skip a space and you're going to do a materials list. Just make a simple bulleted list of all the materials that you used. Just try and be complete, so you should have more than 4 or 5 things. And then your procedure is also going to be another bulleted list. Make sure that this is reproducible. If you remember our discussion on peer-reviewed science, we want to make sure that somebody else can do this lab to try and get the same results so that they could either support or refute your hypothesis. And that's how we determine what good science is and if it's trustworthy. So let's go on to the second page. The data or the observations section, this is not where you're doing a ton of independent thought. Don't spend a ton of time here. This can be the same if you have a table and your table looks just like your partner's. That's okay. I'm not so worried about that. In the data section, you should have only the data that you collected. If you have pictures, this is where you put it because this is evidence. So what is the information that you gathered during your experiment? That's it. I wouldn't just put a table though and not tell me what I'm looking at the table. So you can see here it says table 1. This table shows the time that it took the roto recovery vehicle to fall from a given height during 3 separate trials. So when I'm looking at this, I know exactly what this table is telling me. I'm not looking at it and just seeing a bunch of random numbers. So make sure that you're sort of telling a story with your data, observations, and your discussion section. Your discussion section, this is going to be where you put your graph. The graph goes in the discussion section because you are breaking down and analyzing your data with a graph. And that's the whole point of the discussion section. This is going to be where you break down and analyze your data. You're going to tell me, this is what happened. This is why we think that this happened. And refer back to your graph. Think about what graph would be appropriate for the lab that you conducted. Are you comparing results? Are you trying to find a relationship? What kind of graph demonstrates what it is that you're looking for? So you're going to discuss your results. You're going to refer to your data tables and your graphs. You're going to make sure that you analyze, did it support or refute your hypothesis? Now remember, we're not proving or disproving anything. We're supporting or refuting our hypothesis. It is very difficult to prove anything. So do remember to go back to your hypothesis and explain how it turned out. Now remember, the goal is not to be right. That's not the point. Science is messy. Data is messy. And very rarely in science are we right the first time, or do we get it the first time, or the second time, or the fifth time. So if you're going to spend any time doing science, you've got to be ready to make mistakes, find your mistakes, try it again, and make more mistakes. So don't try and set yourself up to to be right. If your hypothesis was refuted or supported, doesn't matter. So don't stress out about whether or not you got the expected results. It's okay. Data is data. And talk about possible sources of error. Please do not use human error. It's just too vague. There are many sources of human error, so try to be a little bit more objective. Finally, your conclusion. In the conclusion, once again, not a lot of independent thought here. You are going to restate the purpose and the hypothesis of your lab, and then tell me whether it was your hypothesis was supported or refuted. Don't tell me why. You already broke that down. The discussion section is where you're doing your thinking, you're analyzing, you're putting all of your effort here in the discussion section. I mean, not all of it, but most of your effort. This is you're showing me how you can think here. So conclusion, you're just concluding. You're wrapping it up, and that's it. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys in class.